On October 7th, the men and women of the IDF and our police forces ran to the battle, not having any clue of the scale of this attack and the enemy's numbers. They ran to the fight to save lives, many paying the ultimate price to rescue those under attack. On that day, many of our friends and colleagues were called up and rushed to the fight, and many of our staff and students are still serving on the front lines down south and fighting Hezbollah in the north. Here is a story of a Messianic soldier whose unit was rushed to the fight on October 7th, and how he found courage under fire in God, whose power overshadows the cruelty of our enemies.
We're close to the border of Gaza. We're close to Gaza City, and just behind us, Kibbutz Mefalsim. And I have a privilege to stand with a Messianic soldier, a dear brother in the faith, who fought here, who came right here in the 7th of October, a year ago. And we want to hear from you. So what happened? How did you get here?
I was awake when at 6:30, when the rocket started flying over Israel.
Chaos.
I remember it just caught me off guard because the rocket
Keep on coming.
it just kept on coming. My commander unit, which is a believer.
Your commander unit is a Messianic believer. Praise the Lord.
Yeah, immediately come to the base, prepare your stuff, get a gun and go to the south. Continuously, not only the rockets, but
Terrorists are all over the place.
Yeah, they just kept coming. We decided it's right to come to Kibbutz Sad, which is nearby, a couple kilometers south from Mefalsim. So we begin to take missions from there. By the way, one of the team commanders is also a Messianic believer.
Another one. So you're surrounded with brothers.
The first mission is to rescue the Motzav Paga. It's a big chaos. We don't
know exactly the full picture.
Yeah. I just did the missions. It was really, you could not believe what's happening.
You were coming on that road and you saw something that you never saw in your life. What was on the sides of the side of the road? Just here.
7th of October, as I told you, my feeling was just do your mission, don't look left and right, don't look at the
focus.
Focus, don't look at the dead bodies. I didn't look at the damages, didn't focus on that. Just to look for the terrorists and help the injured civilians and take the dead bodies that you can. Yes. I was out, not a blackout, but
really
almost
focused on
yeah. After that, in the morning, we didn't sleep.
We
had missions non-stop.
So on the morning of the 8th of October?
Yeah, in the 8th of October, I remember we drove to Mefalsim. Suddenly, I just lift my head, look around. While we drive in the road, I could not believe what I saw. This is the first time I look around, really what's happening.
It's you open your eyes and what do you see?
I see many civilian cars, broken, damaged, people with their heads on the wheel. Everything still working, some of the cars are burned totally.
Wow.
Just imagine, you cannot really, it feels like a movie. I look to the north, I look at the skies.
You look up?
And I look up and I see big heavy clouds. I saw the thunderstorm far away, like it was storming, and it gave me courage.
It encourages you also.
And I felt the anger of God. It gave me this feeling that God is big.
God is in control.
Might of God. And this is the feeling that I really got courage. And I remember passing it to my fellow crewmates.
Wow.
Just gave me like this.
One of the that God is in control.
Our commander unit,
which is a believer?
Yeah, which is a believer, comes to me with a big smile, you hear this helicopter?
You see the helicopter above us?
Yeah, say hi to him. This is our friend.
A Messianic believer, a friend that you know.
It was really nice, encouraging to see all the believers, even surrounding me.
Surrounding you and even in the sky.
Above, yeah. Suddenly he is above us, doing his mission.
Thank you for this incredible testimony. Thank you so much. There's so many people who hear you and they're praying for us. And it's so encouraging to know that there's other believers serving the people of Israel. Thank you so much.
Amen.
As we see the massive scale of destruction and lives lost in this burnt car memorial, Each of these vehicles represents many lives tragically cut short by this barbaric attack.
Shalom, Dr. Fendel.
Shalom, Golan.
Thank you for your time. Can you tell us where are we? What's going on? What is this graveyard of cars?
Basically, this is through the motive of cars. This is how I understood how massive that day was. Even though the day started much, much earlier in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, I'm going back towards 3 p.m. 3 p.m. I'm as a doctor driving an ambulance, just like we're right behind us. Driving an ambulance.
That was an ambulance.
That's what an ambulance. We're going to tell about it a bit more soon. But driving down an ambulance on the roads all around here, going through Sderot, which is a city where I was born in, and my whole family was there on the 7th. And I was going through Sderot, and on the roads, I thought it was like, points of battles. But no, then I saw cars upside down, bodies on the road, pacifiers and boosters, car seats just thrown out on the street. And that's when I understand, right now I'm on a street, driving down, maybe terrorists were here a couple of minutes ago, maybe they're still here, maybe they will come here. And that's the first time I really started understanding that I'm in danger. I like also starting here because I feel that this is the right place that I could give honor to the entire tragedy that happened that day. But this is a place that brings the story of the entire battle field that it happened.
Of the 7th of October.
Of the 7th of October. And also it's for us to one time understand how big this place is. This place brings in 1,600 cars.
1,600 cars.
People would gather up in the car just trying to run away. So every car here is basically telling a story of at least
4 people.
Sometimes
Even
4,
5.
sometimes more. Then you just can understand how big this day was. A lot of the cars here are burnt, and some are but shattered from bullets, RPGs. Everybody says that right now, me and you are talking here of history that's still happening. We don't know how it's going to end. It's being
We're
written.
in the middle of it, yes.
It's like a Bible that was written. Maybe we're adding a paragraph right now to the Bible. Something very, very important in the Jewish history. But I could tell you, Golan, that I know how it's going to end. And I know it on the base of the Jewish history. Whenever it faced a tragedy, it just got stronger.
Back.
Just got stronger. Let me explain why this is happening here. Why all the cars were collected here. They were collected here just for taking the cars out of the streets, so I could drive down here with my kids today and not see every day the tragedy in front of my eyes. We went through enough. But more of that is, this is a place where the police could come investigate. And they investigate the cars, they get evidence. And the cars that they gave us a lot of evidence, a lot of stories. People come here to find the belongings of their beloved. Think about it, they have nothing to hold on from that day.
Yes.
Nothing left. And when the family comes here, they could see some of the story. They find the car of their beloved, and they could get a glance
It's a memory.
of the last moments, a memory of the last moments of their beloved.
Yes.
More than that, the most important is for Zaka. Zaka, they're in charge of bringing every part,
looking for body parts.
anything that contains DNA, and to get more information and to bring everything to be buried as the Jewish law. So this is basically why the site is here. Today it became a memorial site. There's cars here that people would turn around. They were already out of battle zone, but then they remembered they forgot one of their friends. They turned around back. They found a friend. They brought him on the car. And those kind of stories show you how much light and how much hope and we have in the strength of Israel and the Jewish nation. I told you about all these cars. You could see how many. It does not end. It goes far. If you look all the way there, you cannot see the end of it. It goes very far.
You said 1,600 cars,
1,600 cars in one place. This is the wall of all the burnt cars. The cars that are not burnt are set up down there. I want to talk to you a bit about what happened in that junction. In that junction, first of all, I understood what is heroism. You know, today you try to point out heroism, it's all the time the person that was killed, right? He was killed, but he was a hero. Heroism is basically anybody could be a hero, no matter what he does in life, what is his background or what experience he has. And that's what happened in that junction. The friends from my community come out and they do whatever they can. just to give them a hug. You know how much that is? Just to give them food. To take, you have a car license, you have a
Yep.
driver license. Okay, so you could take injured people towards the hospital, and going on the dangerous roads, giving medical care, just helping with the logistics, bringing light when it gets dark, bringing electricity. Everybody came out from the village, and everybody was a
You
hero
saw
that
the
day.
community coming together.
The
to help.
community, and whoever that didn't come out was in the shelter with the kids, which is also a heroism.
course.
So you learn here what is the value and what is really being a hero. Another thing, but that we saw that day in this junction, is the
unity?
the unity we have in our nation. If you remember the 6th of October, and the
It
days
was a lot of
before that,
division before, yes.
it was crazy. It looked like we're going to kill each other any second. People would look around and like say, there's no hope. And here we're in an area where there's a lot of villages near each other that are very, very different. If it's political wise, if it's religious wise, and we never would talk to each other, never would come together. We didn't know each other. And I'm telling you, don't listen to the television today, what's happening outside. Most of the community, most of our nation understands that we need to be united, and we're more united since then. And that's where we're heading to. We're heading to unity.
Amen. Dr. Fendel, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you
Thank
for
you
being
so much.
hopeful
Thank you.
even in this place of death. Thank you.
Thank you, it's my mission.
The majority of those murdered that day were fleeing the Nova Music Festival just 3 miles from the border. Sadly, this attack was the deadliest concert in history, with more than 360 attendees murdered and dozens more abducted. Terrorists broke through the border and drove down Route 232, cutting a deadly path through rural communities, blocking off the road to the festival from the north and from the south before swarming the festival site on foot. Then the murderers encircled crowds on 3 sides, gunning them down and forcing them to flee over fields to the east. Heavily armed terrorists choked off almost all avenues of escape, trapping crowds, at the same time targeting shelters where people were hiding, killing them en masse. We will never forget the cruel nature of these attacks, and we wanted to take you to the site, which has turned into a memorial of the lives lost.
So, Ran, we are in the Nova Music Festival next to Kibbutz Re'im.
Yes.
And, we feel there's death, silence of death in the air, but we want to give voice to those who can't speak anymore.
Right. So first, you can look at this collage of pictures. It's one artist that collected the pictures of all the people who were
Participated
murdered
here
here,
and murdered.
murdered here. And now, if you look around you, each person that was murdered or kidnapped from here has a sign, has his picture. And then all around, the families came and put more and more memorials privately. So this is the site.
And it's hundreds, right?
It's hundreds. On the day, October 7, there was a big music festival. It was called the Nova. Many people stayed here for the night. There were probably more than 4,000 people in this festival. You can hear people come here all the time, groups, soldiers, school, people from abroad. Do you hear the girls singing
Girls
there?
singing, yeah, from Psalms.
Psalms,
They're singing in
prayers.
Hebrew.
So in this place, in the day of the October 7th, there were more than 4,000 people celebrating, dancing from midnight, from night into the morning.
People from all over the world, by the way.
Yeah, many people came from many countries, but mostly Israelis and mostly young people. And then suddenly there were many rockets coming from Gaza, and they all heard that. With the very loud music, they started to see the smoke, and also they saw those people coming with those gliding parachutes, and then the security officers told everybody to go to get away. The problem was that if there are more than 4,000 people, all the cars, it's just a big traffic jam. And what also happened is that the killers from Gaza, they went into the road and started to kill people,
Shooting everybody that were
in
trying.
the cars. So it's
So
like
it was a trap of death.
trap of death, and there's nowhere to go. So from those 4,000 people, we know that 364 people were murdered on that day. Another 44 people were kidnapped into Gaza. And from those 44, several already we know that are dead. Every 10th person was either killed or
Murdered or kidnapped.
or kidnapped here. So, and it's a community of those feasts, festivals. So these people,
They know each
They know
other.
each other. And many of those who survived, they carry with them very big issues, mental issues today. That's what happened here. And after that, the families, it's hundreds of people. So the families came here and started to build this as a memorial. This is a spontaneous movement of people just coming, putting
parents and
friends, putting the pictures. Many of those who were killed here, they were hiding in the fields, behind bushes. There are some trees here, so they're trying to hide in many places. And we know from parents that they got a call from their kids, and then they hear their kid die. There are many situations like that. It's such a big scar in the heart of our nation. There are many people here, but they are very quiet.
They're walking, they're crying.
They respect, they all mourn. We all mourn when we come here. It's a very emotional place to be.
So Ran, we are still in Re'im Forest, really close to the Nova Music Festival. What is this place exactly?
During the massacre in the festival, people were trying to hide. So some of them were able to hide in this creek, but this place or this riverbed is also mentioned in the Bible. Do you know when? Where? In Genesis
Chapter 26.
Chapter 26, we read about Isaac, Yitzhak, who comes just like his father to this area, the area of Gerar, where the Philistine king was called Avimelech. Let's read what happens here. So it says, now there was a famine in the land beside the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham. So Isaac went to Gerar. So Gerar, if this is the valley of Gerar, the city of Gerar is a little further up this valley. To Abimelech, king of the Philistines. So the people here are called Philistines. The Lord appeared to him and say, do not go down to Egypt. So Abraham went to Egypt, but he stayed here. Now Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. And the Lord blessed him. And the man became rich and continued to grow, richer until he became very wealthy. For he had possessions of flocks and herds and a great household, so that the Philistines envied him. Now all the wells which his father servant had dug in the days of Abraham, his father, the Philistines stopped up by filling them with earth. The interesting thing about this, and later on it says that the king, Abimelech, tell him, go to the valley of Gerar. So then he comes here and digs,
again.
more wells here. Now, why this is important? This place, there's no springs of water here, only wells. So this is really the same geographical arena.
It happened right here.
Right here, and this is exactly how things look like. But notice the players in this play, Isaac, which is Israel,
the promised son,
and the Philistines. Now, again, we hear about the Philistines. Remember when we spoke about the Philistines in Gaza? They were bad here.
Bad connotation.
They're trying to destroy Isaac, the son of Abraham, the promised son of Abraham. What's the Bible is trying to tell us about this? Why it's always with the Philistine? Now notice that I said that the Philistines in the time of Isaac, they envied Isaac.
They envied his prosperity,
His
the wealth.
prosperity.
Yes.
Now look at what's going on now. There is the people in Gaza. In the disengagement, we left their greenhouses and fields. And what did they do with that? They just destroyed everything and started to dig tunnels. And they envy more what we have here. So all the kibbutzes here that thrive and prosperous, they want to take over. This is their envy. And if you think about this in a more global, spiritual way, you see that this envy against Israel, against the success, again what the blessing of the Lord is all over. It's not only the story of the Arabs in Israel. It's
bigger than that.
It's a story of those who envy the gifts that God gives to those who He loves.
Yes.
And those who envy the gifts of God, they try to destroy. And they come from the enemy. Who was the first anointed Messiah of Israel? Saul. Who killed Saul?
The Philistines.
The Philistines. So you see, the Philistines are always after the people of Israel, the Jews. It started with Abraham and Isaac, it continued with Samson, and it continued with Saul, and later on we read with Jeremiah and Amos how they're going to be punished. And what's interesting, the Arab people who live in Gaza, how do they call themselves?
They call themselves Philistines.
Yeah, they actually said the word Palestine. Very similar. Yeah. Why do they call themselves Palestinians or Philistine? Why? The British that were here in the 20th century, they called this the Mandate of Palestine. Yeah. So they took this name and called them, but
they adopted this name. Why?
This is very interesting. If you check what the meaning or the spiritual burden that come with this name, what is it? It's those who represent the enemy that is trying to abolish the plans of God for salvation through His people. It started with Abraham and Isaac, continue with Saul, continue with David, and many years later was adopted by the Arabs that also try to destroy Israel.
A little bit like Amalek, right?
You're right.
Yep.
1 Samuel chapter 30.
With David in the city of Ziklag, I hope I say it right in English.
Right. So what the story is, David is hiding from Saul. Where is he hiding? Where is he going to? To the king of the Philistine, Achish. Mm-hmm. Why is he going to him? Because that's the most secure place if you're hiding for a king that is trying to kill you, even though the Philistines are not really friends of Israel. So they are now going to fight in the north against Saul, where he's going to die in the Mount Gilboa. And the people of the Philistines, they tell their king, we don't want this David, we cannot trust him. And that's very good for him because he didn't really want to fight against his own people. So David go back to the city that he got from the king, Ziklag.
Yep.
And what does he find there? That there were raiders coming.
The Amalek.
The Amalek. Let's read this. 1 Samuel chapter 30. Then it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had made a raid on the Negev and on Ziklag, and had overthrown Ziklag and burned it with fire. And they took captive the women and all who were there in it, both small and great, without killing anyone, and carried them off and went their way. When David and his men came to the city, behold, it was burnt with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. Mm-hmm. Now, this happened just around here. Does this remind you something that happened just last year?
Exactly.
Do you see how similar the story that we read here about David to what happened here? The people from Gaza come, take captives, take them into Gaza, burned, kill the people.
It's as if history repeats itself.
The history repeats itself. And those are the Amalekites. So if you think about the Philistines and the Amalekites, those are the two nations that are the biggest enemies of Israel. This name represents the power of the evil one trying to destroy the plans of God,
God for Israel and for the rest of the
salvation
world.
through Israel.
Yes.
Salvation of the world, salvation of humanity through Israel. And they're trying to stop it. And we are in this warfare. It's not just Israel against the
And we're in the
poor
same
Arabs.
spot. It happens thousands
It's
of
the
years ago,
same
and it
spot.
happens
Yes.
1 year ago.
Exactly.
The biblical past and our current conflict are closely related. Why are we in this warfare? Our enemies are fighting against the God of Israel. Now more than ever, in these dark days, it's imperative that we stand as one for Israel. These stories need to be heard, and most of all, we need to understand the battle we fight is not just with flesh and blood. Will you join in prayer with us for the families of those who have lost their sons and daughters, friends, sisters and brothers? Our heart's desire is for all to be saved, for a spiritual awakening among our enemies that would turn hearts bent on death and destruction to be transformed by the gospel to love. How can we find hope in these days? It seems impossible, but thankfully we have the promise of the prophets. The Prince of Peace will return. Yes, in even more difficult times than these. And he promised not just to bring awakening and salvation to Israel, but healing and brotherhood. Through the prophet Isaiah, we see God's promise to turn ancient enemies to brothers. And the Lord will make himself known to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians will know the Lord in that day and worship with sacrifice and offering. And they will make vows to the Lord and perform them. In that day, there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria. And the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. In that day, Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, "Blessed is Egypt my people, and Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel my inheritance." In the midst of these days, hope is breaking through. Will you join in faith with us? Will you stand with God's promises today? God doesn't promise us a life free of trouble. We will likely face even more difficult days than these. But for those who stand with Him in faith, He has promised to be with us in all those trials. Israel's survival and revival is a motor miracle. Will you stand with us today in prayer and support and become one for Israel?